Hello, it's Ericka Sallee of True Synergy, and welcome back to my channel. True Synergy is a personal coaching and professional development company where I help women and organizations to figure out what stands in the way of their success. And so, if you're interested in hearing not just these types of conversations, but strategies and tools to help you move beyond the barriers, then I do encourage you to subscribe to this channel, share it out, and then turn those notifications on so that you are in the know when new videos are uploaded. So the topic for today is 3 characteristics to check before you wreck. Now, these are things that I think each and every one of us can at least heighten our awareness around, whether it is within us or we see these characteristics in other people. And so the first is the perfectionist. The perfectionist is the person who wants to have the golden halo around his or her head at all times. The person who dots all the I's and crosses all the T's, never makes a mistake, never stumbles, and wants other people to see them as the person who always has it together. The smarts, the wit, always in line, always has everything checked. Well, the reality is that many of us fall short of perfection. As a matter of fact, I would say that we're striving for progress, not necessarily perfection. Now, while there are some industries that need to be perfect, now I think of the air traffic controllers, for instance, who are managing the airspace across the world. Can you imagine just how many planes are in the air at any given time? And so, in order for people to arrive to and from their destination safely, yes, both air traffic controllers and pilots do need to operate perfectly. But the everyday moments that we get to experience, we do have to recognize that perfection is often hard to come by. Now, this is not to say that we shouldn't strive to have quality products and services and good relationships with people. No, that's not what this conversation is meant to convey. But when we get to the point where we're striving for perfection, either within ourselves or for the people that work with us or connected with us, that can become toxic. And why is that? Well, sometimes the perfectionist is one who really doesn't want to hear that there's been a mistake, or we've fallen short, or we didn't quite deliver as we had intended. The perfectionist has a way of sometimes putting that extra added pressure on him or herself and those that they're connected to. And sometimes it causes people to walk around on eggshells. Oh my gosh, we can't make this mistake and we can't fall short because we know that this is not going to fly and this is going to just send things into a topsy-turvy sort of situation. Can you imagine just how much pressure that puts on one and others? And so instead of striving for perfection, the thought is, how do I begin to make progress? And if I fall short, if we make a mistake, which is inevitable in this human experience that we're all sharing, then what can I learn from it? How can I take away some lessons learned so that this mistake can be changed, or we can figure out how to expand or to grow and to do things differently and even better the next time? So the perfectionist is the first characteristic that we absolutely have to check before we wreck. I can recall some years ago, many, many years ago, when I was planning my wedding. And of course, as a brand new person who was engaged, a woman who's planning her wedding, she wants to make sure that everything is perfect. That was me. To the point where I remember inviting my family over to my home, my bridesmaids, my mom, my hostesses, and I had a full-on agenda of what I wanted to get accomplished. And although I saw it as me trying to just make sure I had everything in order, many years later we joked about it and said, you know what, you were really getting on our nerves because you were trying to be the perfectionist. You were trying to make sure that everything was just so. And so I realized that I indeed have had experiences where I've tried to be that perfectionist, or in the moments where I didn't really want to make a mistake. Because there were times in the course of my life where I struggled with not fitting in and wondering whether or not I was good enough. And so I then began to think of myself, oh my gosh, I can't make a mistake, or I can't let people see that, no, I don't know this. because my own history and experience caused me to demonstrate that perfectionist behavior. But the reality is that we all appreciate the authenticity of who we are with all of our mistakes, with all of our stumbles and our shortcomings. That just reminds other people and even ourselves that yes, we are indeed human. So strive for progress, not perfection. And I do believe that people honor and appreciate us more for when we do have those stumbles, because then we get to share how we bounced back and was able to recover. The second characteristic is the pusher. Now, the pusher is the person who loves to advance someone else's agenda. Never mind whether or not it makes sense or does this really align with what I believe or what I think is right, or how I think that we should approach this particular situation. But the pusher is adopting someone else's philosophy and really not giving themselves the opportunity to think for themselves. And really what they're doing is they're advancing someone else's agenda. And sometimes you'll see the pusher characteristic when there is a close relationship, perhaps with one who portrays themselves as a perfectionist. Because the pusher then does the bidding of other people and goes out there with the message and speaks the language, even if that person doesn't necessarily agree with it or makes them feel uncomfortable. But just because they're trying to speak the language, advance the agenda, do the bidding, get out in front, and give the messaging because it sounds good or it seems like it's going to appease other people, that's the pusher. And at the end of the day, you and I not only have a voice, but I believe that we're in a time where we have the responsibility to be responsible, so that we're not just going out and saying what people might want us to say and doing what people may want us to do, but we're actually thinking and really being thoughtful and considerate with the things that we do and the things that we say, so that we're not just pushing something else along for the sake of moving in a certain direction. But we're actually stopping and taking the moment to say, does this really make sense? Does this align with who I am and what I believe? Is this the right thing to do? You know, I'm sure that many of us can attest to the fact that we've been in circles and conversations, maybe even meetings or casual acquaintance connections, where we hear someone say something and we just kind of go along with it because it sounds good. And then perhaps we go and we repeat that. That's what I call the pusher, because we're pushing something out without really stopping to think, well, what are the implications? And does this really represent who I am and what I stand for? I believe that we're in a time when we're seeing a lot of the pusher mentality, because it feels like it'll advance us and it'll give us some posture and some power and some privilege over other people if we push this particular agenda or this particular message. And so how can you avoid being the pusher? Well, it's stopping to ask some of the things that I've already mentioned. Does this align with what I believe? Does this make sense? Is this doing more harm, or is it helping people in whatever it is that you are involved in, whether it's personal or professional? And so we get to stop and just ask ourselves a few questions before we just go out there with something that sounds good, but may not necessarily be good. That's the pusher. The third characteristic is the pleaser. The pleaser is the person who wants to do everything for everyone else, doesn't want to ruffle feathers, doesn't want to make anyone angry. I'm just going to do this because I know this is what you want to do, and I want to help at all cost. And while it is great to be able to help and support other people, we also have to recognize that for as much as we want to please other people, we should also look to make sure that we're not doing it at the expense of our own health and well-being. Sometimes the pleaser can never say no, when in reality, no is a complete sentence and is a form of health and well-being. That's probably a conversation for another day. But the pleaser often puts him or herself last, because they want to be able to show people, I'm here for you. I'll do anything you want me to do. Just tell me what it is and I'll do it. I'm here for you. And support is great, but self-sacrifice and self-sabotage often comes when we are trying to people please. And so these characteristics are very important because it helps us to get in touch with who we are and how we want to show up in the world. And I know that many of us want to fit in and we want to feel like we're a part of something. I know how that can be. As I said, growing up, I was a product of bullying and sometimes not really feeling like I fit in. And so I wanted to be able to please other people. I wanted to go along with the crowd. But there comes a moment in time where we get to check in with ourselves and say, is this really me? Is this really doing me of service? Or am I just sold out for everything and everyone else at the expense and the cost of really what makes sense for me? And so today is a good time to just check in. Am I the perfectionist? Am I the person who does not want to let go of things being any less than, there's that word, perfect? Do I want to come across as if I'm the know-it-all, the be-all, and there's nothing that I can do wrong, and I want everybody else who sees me to see that? Am I the person who's going to go out there and just say it and do it regardless of whether or not it's the right thing to do, but I want to push along something that someone else wants me to do? And am I just sitting back wanting to do everything that makes everyone else feel loved and appreciated, working my fingers to the bone because I want to make sure I can't say no. If I say no, they're going to look at me and they're going to think something about me, and I don't want to make anyone upset. If you look in the mirror and you say, this is me, or you look around you and you say, oh, I can identify this behavior, these characteristics in other people, and I feel like, oh, that's not good for me, then this is a great opportunity to reassess. How do I connect with myself if these three characteristics or one of the three is showing up for me? And then how do I want to be connected with other people if I see it around me and I know for sure that it's not good for me? This is the perfect time to make that assessment. And so I know there's so much in this conversation, so many different ways that we can uncover and peel back the layer of the onion that is underneath of all of what I've shared. But in this time, you may be saying to yourself, oh my gosh, well, that might be me. And I might need to assess, and I might need to ask myself some more questions to figure out, how am I showing up? And what am I allowing? And what am I allowing other people to portray onto me as they show up in a way that could be toxic? So if you're thinking about that for yourself and you're saying, I need to dig a little deeper, I need a little bit more, then I do encourage you to visit my website. It's truesynergy.org. There is a contact link at the top of the page, and all you have to do is send me a message. We can have a 30 to 45-minute discovery call. It's something that we can have a conversation about to figure out, well, what's happening in your space right now? And how can I support you to move closer to your best version? Here's what I'll say in closing. One of the things that I know for sure is that transformation begins when we start to break down those barriers that stand in the way of our true synergy. And when I say that, what I mean is our ability to connect with the best version of ourselves, to connect with the things that are fulfilling and purposeful, joyful, and causes us to feel good as if we're standing in the world making a difference. We begin to get closer to that when we move some of the things out of the way, like toxic characteristics and behaviors that keep us from showing up to be our best version within ourselves and with those that we get to touch. So if you're in that space and you're saying, okay, I want to get closer to that, then yes, I do want to connect with you. So again, go to truesynergy.org, send me a contact. Let's set up some time to have a conversation about where you are and how I can support you. So I look forward to seeing you all again next time. Until I do, take care and be well.